Hi everybody, it's Franny from Heidi and Franny's Garage, and today we're swapping out the transmission oil on the 356. Tools and supplies we'll need. On the far right there is our torque wrench. Then next to that is a 19mm wrench we'll use to get the drain plugs off, along with a 19mm socket, extension, and ratchet. To the left of that is my electronic torque wrench, so we'll see what that's for in a bit. Below that is a pump that I'm going to use to get the gear oil back into the transmission. Then we have our rubber gloves, our shop towels. Then to the left are 3 quarts of gear oil, and behind that is our oil drain pan. I'll run you through the steps for today. So the first thing we're going to do is take the car out and get it good and warm. We want that fluid as warm as possible so it flows really well. And also if there's any debris or whatever inside the transmission, hopefully it'll be suspended in that fluid and come out with it. Then the next thing we do is we break our fill plug loose. You never want to drain all your fluid out just to find out you can't get your fill plug out. So you always want to check to make sure you can get that one out first. Then we'll go ahead and pull the drain plug and drain all the fluid out. Now there's no filters with this, and there's no crush washers with this on this transmission, so there's really no parts beyond the oil itself. We'll go ahead and replace our drain plug, fill the fluid back up, replace our fill plug, and then just sort of take the car out and just make sure that there aren't any leaks at all, and we've got everything all back together. So our first step is going to be to break our fill plug loose here. Now an interesting thing about this plug and also the drain plug, which is up here, is that I could not find a torque spec for these things through the manuals, through the service manuals, nothing. And I think it turns out that these are just conically shaped bolts, and they kind of put them in until it stops leaking, which is kind of strange. But it does raise an interesting point. What if you've got an important bolt and you can't figure out what the torque spec is? How do you get that? Well, I remember our little electronic torque meter here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on while I take it off, and what that's going to do is give me the static torque reading on the bolt. We know that when we put it back on, our dynamic's going to be less than our static torque, but we should never exceed what we pulled it off with. Now I know these aren't really particularly like tight on here. They're not corroded or anything because I've done this a little while back. So let's see what we get. I have my torque meter set up. Now this bolt takes a decent amount of torque, so I've got my super cool extendable ratchet here. Isn't that great? So let's go ahead and put some power on this and see what we get. 20, 30, 40. Oh my gosh. 50, 60. There we go. So it broke loose around 65 foot-pounds or so. So we know we're not going to use any more than that when we put it back on. So that just gives us a way to kind of check a bolt that we normally don't know a torque spec for. Can be very helpful. One thing we do want to remember though is that torque spec that we got, or the torque number we got off the meter there, is a static torque, and so it's always going to be higher than the dynamic torque that we would use to actually put it on. So we never want to exceed that, and so we'll sort of cinch up to, if that said 65, I guess we could start at maybe 45 or 50 and see if that does it. At this point we just need to take our fill plug out. Next we'll pull our drain plug out. That's up here. I have to use a wrench on this because of the big hoop here that the engine and transmission are mounted to. So we're going to loosen this up a bit, and then we'll pull our drain pan over. It's pretty tight as well. Feels like it's about the same torque as the other one. Want to get this to where we can take it off by hand. There it is. Looks pretty loose now. We'll slide our drain pan back over. With our drain plug loose, I've got a little diverter here that I've used on some of the other cars. I just would rather the oil didn't come flying into the hoop here. So I'll set my little diverter up, and then I'm going to loosen my plug the rest of the way. And hopefully this won't make too much of a mess. Okay, here we go. Alright, I think we can move our little diverter out of the way here. I have our drain plug all cleaned and the magnet in the center all cleaned. It really wasn't very bad at all. You just very much want to check these to make sure if you have tons and tons of stuff in there, you may have something going a little bit wonky in your transmission. So as I mentioned before, these are conically shaped plugs and they'll stop leaking if you get them in tight enough. But one thing you can do to sort of help that along is to use maybe a little bit of this Permatex #2. It's a non-hardening, just to seal it, sort of helps seal these threads a little bit. So I'm just going to add just a tad, not much at all. We have very few drips, so we'll go ahead and reinsert our drain plug. We can push our drain pan out of the way. The problem with torquing this drain bolt here is that we've got the hoop in the way. So if I try to use my torque wrench, there's no way I'm ever going to get my torque wrench in there. It's just there's no room for it, and there's not enough room really behind it to get to it either. So how do you torque a bolt like that that you can't get at it? Now I can get my wrench on it just fine. We took it off with the wrench, right? So is there a way that we can use our wrench with our torque wrench together? And yes, there is. There's this neat little device I just found that you can actually clamp on your wrench. Now the idea is that with your wrench down here, you can attach this clamp to the, attach this to your wrench. And then you can use there's a actual 3/8 square drive on the back of this thing, so you can hook your torque wrench to it. So let's see how this works. I'm going to get this down low enough to where we can get to it. Okay, let's say we put it right about there. It has these hex clamps on the screws on the end, so let's go ahead and clamp this down. Now I did read with this that it can sort of mar the wrench, so don't use it on a wrench that you love. Alright, so I've got this attached to my wrench. I'm going to use an adapter here because my torque wrench has a 1/2-inch drive on it and this is a 3/8. I have my torque wrench set to 50 foot-pounds. Put this whole deal together here. Let's see if we can do it like this. Alright, now here's another thing you have to be careful of this. If we use this all parallel, so the wrench is parallel to the ratchet, we have to take into account the additional distance from the pivot point here to where we're delivering the torque up here. And there's a little equation you can use. I'll go ahead and put it up. You can use if that's the only way you can use it. But a better way is if you can rotate your torque wrench to be 90 degrees like this to the initial point here, 90 degrees to your wrench, then you don't have to fuss with any of the calculations. And whatever your torque wrench is set to is the torque that will be applied to the bolt at the end. So that's what we're going to do. So if we can get right at 90 degrees here, we're pretty close. There we go, 90 degrees. Okay. And rotate this guy around. It's a little awkward, but it probably is going to be the only way you're going to actually get this to work. You can sort of help with your other hand holding the wrench here. All right, getting close. Okay. Now, as you're ready to actually apply torque, you don't want to pull down on the wrench, obviously. You want to use just the torque wrench. And there we go. Clicky, clicky. Okay, so that's 50 foot-pounds we've put. We're at 90 degrees to our wrench, so we know that the torque that we're applying to our bolt is also 50 foot-pounds. Well, that's kind of fun. This thing is kind of interesting, huh? So if you've got a place that you cannot get your torque wrench to, but you could get your wrench to, this is a great way to go ahead and torque those bolts so that you can still use your torque wrench. That's kind of cool, huh? With our drain plug in good and tight and torqued, next step is just to fill up the transmission again with oil. I've got my little push pump here. It works pretty well. And we'll go ahead and fill until the little bit starts to drip out the side. All right, so you just put this guy in the hole here. A top tip would be, if it's awfully cold out, then you can leave your oil inside and get it nice and warm. It'll flow a lot easier. All right, we filled to the point where we've got a little bit dribbling out the hole, so we know we're full. Pull our tube out. I've cleaned our fill plug, and I'm going to add just a little bit of this Permatex to the threads. Just a little bit on each side. Go ahead and reinsert that back. Okay. And we're going to torque it also to about 50 foot-pounds. This one we can get to just fine, so I've just got a standard socket on the end of my torque wrench. There we go, 50 foot-pounds. With our plug back in, that's pretty much it. We'll go ahead and start the car later and drive it around a little bit, warm it up, and see if there's any leaks. But I think we're going to be just fine. With these plugs, if you do see any little leaks on them, just put a little more pressure on them. Go ahead and just a tad more turn on it, maybe 1/8 of a turn or so, and that should take care of any leaks. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video on swapping out the transmission oil on a Porsche 356. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up. If you've got any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them down below and I'll get right to them. If you know of anybody you can think of that would really enjoy this video, please consider sharing it with them. That would be great. So thank you so much for watching, and until next time, safe travels. Bye.